The Unquiet Grave. The full story of Wyndon Asylum. London keeps its secrets well. Beneath the modern glass and steel, behind the cheerful red buses and bustling markets, lie stories that would make the blood run cold. Stories the city has tried to forget. This is one of those stories. This is the complete, unvarnished truth about Wyndon Asylum, a place where medicine became madness, and where the line between doctor and patient blurred into something far more terrifying. The year was 1895. Queen Victoria sat on the throne, and London was the beating heart of an empire. In this age of progress and innovation, Wyndon Asylum opened its doors amidst great celebration. Designed by renowned architect Edward Corvin, it stood as a masterpiece of Victorian Gothic architecture, all soaring towers, intricate stonework, and vast, airy windows that promised light and healing. The newspapers called it a palace for the troubled mind, and Dr. Alastair Finch, just 35 years old and already a rising star in psychiatric medicine, was appointed its first director. The early years seemed promising. Dr. Finch implemented new therapies, art classes, gardening, structured routines. But beneath this veneer of progress, something darker was taking root. Finch was a man possessed by ambition, convinced he could conquer mental illness through radical methods. The hydrotherapy tanks, once used for calming baths, became chambers for icy immersion that left patients blue and shivering. The restraint chairs, meant for brief periods of containment, became instruments of prolonged isolation. It began in Ward C, the women's chronic ward. Nurse Abigail Fletcher's journal entry from April 14, 1898, records the first mention. Patient 742, Miss Eleanor Gray, continues to speak of the tall doctor who visits her at night. She describes him as impossibly thin, with eyes that show no white. No such physician exists on our staff. Over the next months, similar reports trickled in from various wards. A male patient in Ward B spoke of the shadow doctor, who stood at the foot of his bed, breathing but making no sound. Another woman claimed her visitor had fingers like cold iron that left bruises on her wrist. The staff dismissed these as delusions, but the descriptions were too consistent, too detailed. Dr. Finch's reaction was peculiar. Rather than dismissing these accounts, he became obsessed. He ordered these patients isolated for special study. His personal journals reveal his growing fascination. The consistency of the descriptions is remarkable. If this is collective hysteria, it represents a fascinating psychological phenomenon. If it is something else, what a discovery that would be. By 1905, Wyndon had transformed from a place of healing to one of experimentation. Finch had secured private funding to pursue his special studies. The treatments grew more extreme: insulin shock therapy, prolonged sleep deprivation, early prototypes of the transorbital lobotomy. The staff who questioned these methods were quietly dismissed. Those who remained were either true believers or too frightened to speak out. The entity the patients called the warden became more bold. Orderlies reported cold spots moving through corridors. Patients who had never met each other described identical experiences of a tall, thin figure that would stand silently in their rooms before vanishing. Several nurses resigned after witnessing doors unlock and open by themselves. Finch's journals grew more erratic. April 3, 1912. The phenomenon is real. It responds to suffering, to pain. It grows stronger during treatments. I have begun mapping its appearances. There is intelligence here, a consciousness that feeds on despair. The First World War brought a new influx of patients, shell-shocked soldiers, whose trauma seemed to empower the presence further. Finch wrote, "The energy is palpable now. It has learned to manipulate physical objects. Last night, during a storm, the restraints on patient 287's bed unbuckled themselves. The man hasn't spoken in 3 years, but he screamed for an hour." The turning point came on the night of October 31, 1927. A savage storm lashed London, and the asylum lost power. The backup generators failed. In the chaos of wind and darkness, something was unleashed. Nurse Fletcher's final journal entry reads, "The doors are opening on their own. I can hear it moving through the halls, that terrible dry rustling sound like old bones moving. Dr. Finch has locked himself in his office. God help us all." The next morning, orderlies forced open Finch's office. The scene defied explanation. Dr. Finch lay dead at his desk, his face frozen in a scream, but no sound had been heard. The walls were covered in complex mathematical equations and occult symbols drawn in what was later determined to be Finch's own blood. Most chillingly, deep scratches marred the inside of the heavy oak door, as if something had tried desperately to get out. The official inquest ruled it suicide, but the details were suppressed. The asylum was quietly closed, its patients transferred, its staff dispersed. The building was boarded up, then surrounded by a 20-foot brick wall. It was erased from maps and city records, becoming London's dirty secret. But Wyndon refused to stay buried. In the 1950s, urban explorers began sneaking past the walls. Their reports were consistent and chilling. Temperatures that dropped suddenly, the sound of dragging footsteps, and always the whispering. Some claimed to have seen a tall, thin figure moving through the broken corridors. Others returned with photographs that showed strange anomalies, shadowy forms, blurred faces in windows. The most famous incident occurred in 1978 when a group of university students spent the night inside. Only 3 emerged, all suffering from shock and unable to speak coherently of what they'd experienced. Their tape recorder was recovered, containing hours of static punctuated by desperate whispering. "It's in the walls! It's in the walls!" In 2003, a team of paranormal investigators attempted the most thorough documentation of Wyndon. Their equipment failed systematically. Thermal cameras showed cold spots moving with purpose. EVP recordings captured distinct phrases, "Help us," and "He's coming." Their lead investigator, David Kiernan, later wrote, "There is an intelligence there, and it is malignant. It knows when you're afraid. It feeds on it." The truth of what happened to Dr. Finch was finally pieced together when a construction crew working near the old asylum uncovered a metal box buried beneath the foundation. Inside were Finch's complete journals, which told a terrifying story of descent into madness and occult obsession. Finch hadn't been studying the phenomenon. He had been cultivating it. He believed he could harness the collective suffering of his patients to create what occult texts called a tulpa, a thought form given life and consciousness. He saw himself as a modern Prometheus, creating life from the raw material of human pain. His final entry, written just hours before his death, reveals the terrible truth. "It has grown beyond my control. What began as a psychological experiment has become something else entirely. The energy has taken form, and it has developed a will of its own. It is no longer content to feed on suffering. It wants to create it. The door is open now, and I cannot close it. It is in the walls. It is in me. God forgive me, it is hungry." Today, Wyndon Asylum still stands behind its walls, a silent monument to ambition gone mad. The city has grown around it, but the property remains untouched, guarded by private security and something else. Those who live nearby still tell stories, of hearing whispers on the wind, of seeing strange lights in the upper windows, of a tall, thin figure sometimes glimpsed standing behind the boarded-up windows. The official position is that the building is structurally unsafe, too expensive to demolish. But those who know the full story understand the truth. Some doors once opened cannot be closed. Some hungers cannot be satisfied. And some secrets refuse to stay buried. Wyndon Asylum waits, its walls soaked in a century of suffering, its corridors home to something that should never have been created. The warden is still there, still hungry, still whispering. And sometimes, when the wind blows from the east, London still hears it.